start her up. So welcome everyone to class number 5 of the book of Genesis, the book of beginnings, which is the biblical foundation, which means it's also our foundation. So the foundation for our lives and how to live it has so much that's important to learn from the Bible. First is introduced in Genesis. It's an amazing book. So we're going to review the last week's material. And so we're going to start by looking at Genesis 1:11. So Camila, can you please read Genesis 1:11 in English, please?
And God said, let the earth bring forth grass. The herb hailing said, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind. Chose seed is
very good.
Okay, I'm back. I don't think the Chinese like me. Okay, Camila. So bring forth in the first line. Very good. And you corrected some of your other pronunciations the second time the word came up. But at the second line, whose seed?
Whose seed?
Okay, so remember back in the Lord's Prayer, I had you say who again. So who, WH is who.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good.
Who.
So let me do that in Portuguese. E disse Deus, produza a terra erva verde, erva que dê semente, árvore frutífera que dê fruto segundo a sua espécie, cuja semente está nele sobre a terra, e assim foi. So, Emily, can you please read question A?
What is the importance of the first bring forth?
Okay, so that's an interesting verb, bring forth. And it's a little more information than the Portuguese translation. So what do you think bring forth? Because remember, it's the earth now brings forth grass. And it's bring forth is more interesting than the word produce, which is the translation of the Portuguese one. So what do you think? Bring forth. What's the importance of it? It's the first of many bring forths. What do you think is the importance? Well, it's the first time that something other than God is doing something. So the earth is bringing forth grass. So, and what it's all starting is now a continual creation mechanism. Okay, so God had started things, but now he's saying the earth is to bring forth grass. Okay, so it's starting a continual regeneration, a creation mechanism, which is beautiful. So let's go to, yes, Emily.
A cycle.
Exactly. And so question B, Pedro, can you please say question B in English?
What cycle is brilliantly described?
Excellent. So Emily just said the word cycle, and that is what the next question frames it just that way. So this is a cycle. So what kind of cycle is this representing? It's a cycle of what?
Plant life. Plant life.
Exactly. Okay, so it's life cycle of plants. And let's go on to the next question. So Camila, can you please say question C in English?
What might this be a type for?
Perfect. Very well pronounced. Okay, so you remember what a type is. It's like an example, or it's even foreshadowing an interesting English word. So the New Testament foreshadows something in the New Testament. And it's kind of interesting because it's a shadow. In this sense, it's not a bad connotation, like a dark shadow. It's rather, it's already telling you this little shadow that comes later, it gives you an idea. So what do you think? What might this be a type for, this life cycle of plants? Well, could it apply to our lives? Pedro is thinking. What do you think, Pedro?
I don't know.
Okay, Emily?
And being born again, new believers.
Exactly. Okay, so it's like a rebirth. Okay, because it's talking about the herb yielding a seed, the fruit tree yielding fruit, whose seed is in itself. So, oh, we've got the cycle going, and it's already a type for a kind of rebirth. So remember, this was a curveball from last time. So a curveball is a baseball metaphor, right? So curveball is like they go like this, and the ball goes and it comes in a straight. It doesn't go straight and fast. It doesn't go straight and fast. It goes and fools the batter. Okay, so you are the batters. And so question D. So Emily, can you please say question D in English?
Prior to original sin, do you think plants died?
So what do you think? Pedro, what do you think? This is a tough question. So before original sin, was there death on earth? Could plants die?
No.
That's what I thought.
No, there's not.
Okay, that's what I thought. But I'm going to say to you honestly. Oh, go ahead, Pedro.
There was not
Death, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I agree. There's many verses that show that, and that death and decay entered with the original sin. But we'll see, because I think the answer to this question is maybe. It's a good question for your pastor, because if, as we discussed last time, if the grass never dies, it never gives seed. Okay, or so will it keep on growing forever? So before the Garden of Eden, did grass grow until it was 20 feet high?
Maybe it grows slowly.
There you go. We don't know. Okay, so that's what the question is. Okay, so if things but it's a perfect climate, Emily. So I don't think things were then maybe growing a lot more slowly than they do now, but we don't know. So we maybe plant life, a cycle, and for a cycle to work, death is needed. And let's look at 2 verses just to make us think on this. So Pedro, you get the first one. So can you please read John 12:24 in English? John 12:24.
Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit.
Beautiful. That word at the start of the second line, it abideth. I think you said abideth.
Abide.
Exactly, abide. So think of an abide, and we'll see what that means if I don't mangle the Portuguese. Na verdade, vos digo que, se o grão de trigo caindo na terra não morrer, fica ele só, mas se morre, dá muito fruto. Oh, okay, that kind of is implying this was always necessary for the corn like a seed, wheat and plants, that only by dying do they bring forth fruit. Okay, so let's go to Camila. Can you read 1 Corinthians 15:36 in English, please?
So fall that which to somest is not kinet except it die.
Okay, that's it's thou fool. Okay, so the being, so thou fool, and is not quickened except it die, quickened. And let me just pop to that. Oh, and this is tough. Look at that. Apostle Paul is speaking directly. Insensato, o que tu semeias, não é vivificado se primeiro não morrer. Uh-oh. Okay. So it's looking, I don't know what maybe things were different before the Garden of Eden, but you know, it sounds here that plants and seeds specifically. So think of it that way. When a seed comes off a flower, if that seed is still alive, it just decays. The seed needs to die and then be put in the earth, and then moisture, and then it is reborn. Okay, so, and the interpretations of the climate prior to the Garden of Eden is that it was a perfect climate. Yeah. With just a beautiful, perfect climate. So I have to believe that plants were all growing and there were many seeds. And if seeds were working the same way as they are post Garden of Eden, then they had to die. Okay, so it's a good question for your pastor. Was there plant death before the original sin? Okay. And
do you think it's hard? This question is hard because of that verse of Romans that says that there was no death before sin,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think it's confusing.
And there, I agree. I agree.
Because then what's the difference between saying that there was also animal death?
Well, and it's and actually in that case, Emily, I think that could depend on the context. So no death there probably is talking about human beings. Okay, so very clear. I think, and so the context is, before sin, no death. Absolutely true about human beings and animals. But the tougher verses for me are the ones that talk about all of creation groaneth. Okay, so it's the law of entropy is now decaying everything. Right, so that for me is the one that contradicts more directly these two verses. But I don't know. But these verses are categorical about plants, right? The seed has to die to give fruit. And again, maybe there was some way that the Garden of Eden didn't need seeds. I don't know. I don't know. So it's an interesting question. But I never thought of this question before studying this with you. So let's move on. So again, a question for your pastor. Challenge your pastor and say, hey, give your pastor those two verses that we just read, John 12:24, 1 Corinthians 15:36, and point out Genesis 1:12. Those three verses, I think maybe it will make your pastor think and go, interesting. Okay, so let's move on. So that was Camila. So Emily, can you please read question E in English?
Why does the phrase after his kind anticipate?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't correct it. It's what does the phrase after his kind?
With this? Okay.
Thank you. All right, so Emily answered this last time. Does someone else remember? So what the phrase after his kind, what does it anticipate? Why is God so brilliant? He knew when he wrote this verse and said after his kind, the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind. Why is that so brilliant? Does Pedro or Camila have a guess? What did God know would arrive and try to destroy people's faith in the Bible? Dun, 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 dun. Evolution. Okay, because if a fruit tree only yields fruit after his kind, that means that an orange tree does not give apple fruit, and vice versa. So the idea is, no, it has to be the same kind. And one kind is not able to evolve into some other kind. Okay, so a mouse doesn't give birth to a rat or a rabbit. It doesn't happen because they're different kinds. But now let's look. So Pedro, can you please read question F in English?
What are less insightful synonyms for kind?
Very good. So that hard word in the middle. So you go like well, you probably know what that word is in the middle, sight, like vision. You see that word, okay, sight in the middle. And then this is insightful. Okay, so not insightful, sightful. Okay.
Insightful.
Yeah, and you can understand that, okay, insightful is that then well, if part of that is sight and then it's in, then it's like, oh, it's somehow being able to see something important inside something. And that's insight. Okay, different from knowledge. It's a little different. So it's an interesting word. So who wants, what are less insightful synonyms for kind? Remember, there's one in the title of a horrible, deceiving book by Charles Darwin.
Species.
Species, okay.
Yes.
Pedro, do you know the name of that famous book of evolution by Charles Darwin in English? What's it called? In Portuguese, it's a direct translation. So if you remember the Portuguese, then you go, oh, okay. What's that book called?
I think that in Portuguese is A Origem das Espécies.
And that's in English, what is that? Because I don't understand Portuguese. Yeah.
Your origin, the origin of species.
Okay, species. Excellent. There it is. Okay. Excellent. You get it. You get an A. You go to the head of the class, Pedro. Okay, so species. There's another synonym that are not as insightful. Family. Families. Generas. This is a more technical term, but none of them are as brilliant as kind. And then let's look why. So Camila, can you please read question G in English?
What are the limitations imposed by breeding inside, outside a kind?
Very good. So in practical terms, what are the limitations imposed by breeding inside, outside a kind? So remember, God just told us that the fruit tree will only bring fruit within a kind. It won't bring another kind of fruit. It won't bring out, a grasshopper won't come out of the seed. So, and this is going to be the first of many times in this chapter that says, after his kind, after his kind, after his kind. So in practical terms, what are the limitations imposed by breeding inside or outside a kind? So what happened?
I didn't understand the question.
It's a tough question. Okay. So what are the limitations imposed by breeding? So breeding, so I think breeding is what you do with dogs, for instance. Okay, so you have a small dog and then you breed it with a bigger dog and you get a middle-sized dog. So that's breeding. So this, we have many kinds of domestic animals that we use for food. Cows. We also use animals for work. Dogs are used for work. Horses are used for work. So what, maybe have you thought of this or heard of this? When you try to breed or have two different kinds of animals mate, what happens? Does it work? Well, to give an example, and that's what I'm getting at. So it's like, what are the limitations? So why is God saying after his kind? And what does that mean? If he's saying that only what can you get seed that yields fruit within a kind, then within a kind, you can do all sorts of breeding. So a dog with a dog will create another dog, okay? But if it's outside the kind, things stop working. And so I'm going to give you an example. So for instance, a male donkey, if bred with a female horse, what does that produce? Does anyone live on a farm? Pedro, do you know? If you cross a male donkey with a female horse, what's the name of the result? It's not a donkey and it's not a horse.
I don't know.
Okay, what is a pack animal that's used frequently in high mountains, like the Andes? Okay, and what do you think? So they're famous. They're a special type of animal that is used to carry things over mountains. And I think they probably did it here on the Royal Road with gold. I think they use this animal. Okay. We live too far from, Tiradentes is surrounded by farms. It's a mule.
Oh,
Okay. Okay, so a mule is the result of a male donkey with a female horse. What is the problem with a mule?
a mule is burro.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So what's the problem with a mule? Can you just have like, okay, get mules together, get lots of mules? No, because a mule is infertile. Okay, so it's an example. A horse and a donkey are already out, not the same kind any longer. And if you breed them together, it doesn't work. You can have a live animal, but it is infertile. It will not produce further offspring. Okay, so that's it, and so we won't go too far into this, but why is that? It's called something called DNA. Okay, so when the DNA cannot be too different, because then the male and the female, if the DNAs are too different, it doesn't work. Okay, and also, so the DNA restricts. Okay, so the idea that DNA can like, the DNA for a mouse can all of a sudden turn into the DNA for a rabbit. Never going to happen. And it never did happen. Even with 1 billion years, the DNA is too, it restricts, it's too different, it's too specific. So I'll tell you right now, when Charles Darwin was alive, did they know about DNA? No. DNA was only discovered, help me, Emily, I think around World War II, all right? When they got very good electron microscopes, and they're able to like, whoa, or they discovered DNA. And so I'll tell you, DNA destroys evolution. So Darwin couldn't know about DNA. It wasn't discovered yet. But now no scientist with a brain who knows about DNA can also believe in evolution, in my humble view. So, all right, the Bible is fascinating. It's just fascinating. Okay, so let's go. Then it's now Emily. Can you please read Genesis 1:12, please, in English?
And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good.
Very good. So I think you noticed this is very similar to the prior verse. So I'll say, e a terra produziu erva dando semente conforme a sua espécie, é a árvore frutífera cuja semente está nela conforme a sua espécie. E viu Deus que era bom. So what is the difference? And I think in the English, there's more of a difference than in the Portuguese. The difference between the two verses, does anyone remember from last week? Oh, and here we are, sorry. Pedro, can you please read question H in English? Question H.
What is difference between verse 11 and verse 12? Are they significant?
Significant.
Significant.
Very good. And again, error in English. Who can see the error in English in my question?
What are?
Thank you. What are missing the verb? So what are the differences between verse 11 and 12? Are they significant? Okay, so and this is talking in the English. I don't see it in the Portuguese. Anyone remember from last week? In the English, it's not a big difference. It's mostly the same, besides that he says it was good at the end. It's at this, and in Genesis 1:12, it's already past tense in English. Whose seed was in itself. In the prior verse, whose seed is in itself. So God said it, it was done, all right, already passed. So, and as we know, that it was good in God's economy. In God's economy, economy can mean not just money, but also a system. In God's economy, it was good means it was perfect. So let's finish up the review. So Camila, can you please read Genesis 1:13?
Third day.
Yeah, 1:13. And
I think your audio stopped, Camila, when you were saying. Can you say it again, please?
In the evening and the morning were the third day.
Okay, thank you. Very good. And let me try that in Portuguese. E foi à tarde e amanhã o dia terceiro. Emily, can you please read question I in English?
What formation was critical to the third day?
Okay, so we have all this stuff going on. We have a plant, the plant cycle of life, all sorts of what did I call it? Continual creation mechanism or cycle. So what was needed to make this all to allow this all to start? Besides God, God of course was needed, but what else was needed? What was new in the third day? Now, if you go back up, well, it's dry land. Okay, so it's dry land. We needed some dry land because just floating lots of moisture or water in the air, these things don't happen. But in soil,
And light too, right?
yes. Well, but light, I think, was already there on the second day. So that's, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the new thing, the big thing in the third day was dry land. So now let's get to some new material. So Pedro, can you please read Genesis 1:14 in English, please?
And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days, and years.
Perfect. That's not just was good. That was in God's economy. Perfect. Well pronounced. Thank you. Okay, let me see if I can do, you're welcome, half as well. E disse Deus, haja luminares na expansão dos céus para haver separação entre o dia e a noite, e sejam eles para sinais, e para tempos determinados, e para dias e anos. Wow, a new verse, I love it. Okay, get to do something. Okay, so that, Camila, can you please read question 1 in English?
What is the difference from verse 3? And God said, let there be light.
Very good. Now, your English is irregular, like Portuguese, okay? Spanish is very regular, but Portuguese and English are irregular. And so in this case, we said earlier, if there's 2 vowels, then it's more like A followed by I, then it's said. But in this, it isn't. English is irregular. So in this case, it's sad. Like it's almost like sad. Okay. So, but very good. All right. So what's the difference? Genesis 14 and and then Genesis, actually in Genesis 1:3, God said, let there be light. And what's the difference here? Is this repetitive? And I think, go ahead, Emily.
The lights would mean the sun and the stars.
Okay, and we're gonna get there, but you know, the difference is simple in that it was singular, let there be light, and now it says, let there be lights.
Okay.
Okay, so, and I'm just checking if, yeah, and it's plural in Portuguese also. So, and so here's an interpretation, like, well, what's the big difference? Big diff, right? So in verse 3, God said, let there be light. And now he's talking about, let there be lights in the firmament. Well, one interpretation is that in the first case, it was light energy being activated when it was singular. Because remember, God is light. So he didn't need to create light. He is light. But the energy was being activated. And now, if you think of it, because we're going to get into what these lights are. In the firmament of the heaven, divide the day from the, these are like stars, or suns. And so this is a little different than, this is like a planetary nuclear reaction has just got started. Okay, because think of it, you know, so God created light. So there was some kind of activation of energy that, but I'm not sure that it didn't like concentrate, but now, boom, it's concentrated inside stars, suns, and we've learned enough of them that it's like a nuclear process going on. So it's like starting like a nuclear reaction that now just keeps on going. Wow, okay. So let's go to question 2. So that was Camila. No, that was Emily. So no, no, Pedro, Emily. Yeah, so Camila, can you please say question 2 in English?
What is the difference from verse 4? And God divided the light from the darkness.
Very good, well pronounced. don't forget it's the apostrophe S, the possessive. Okay, so it's verse 4's. Okay, to show that it's saying that the line "and God divided the light from darkness" comes from, is of verse 4. So we do the apostrophe S to show possession. So what do you think? What is the difference from verse 4's "and God divided the light from the darkness"? Well, and Pedro, can you hear us? I know that your video is off, but you can hear us okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
I only turned it off.
Okay, to improve your signal, very good. So remember, when
Yes.
I can't see you, you have to say, you have to interrupt, because when there's video, when Pedro starts going like this, then I know I call Pedro, but I can't see you now. And so you have to, instead of going like this, and then you now have to say, okay? So we know to call on you. So deal. So what is the difference from verse 4's "and God divided the light from the darkness"? Well, I'll answer it. So we're coming close. We have to go a little faster. I think back in verse 4, God divided the light from the darkness. It's more general. It's like all universe. And I'm not exactly sure, but it's like the whole big thing, the whole shebang. A little bit of slang that's kind of fun. Shebang. The whole thing. Whereas now, it sounds to me like we're talking about day and night on Earth. Okay, if you think of it like on a star, you know, in a distant galaxy, is there a day and a night going on? I don't know. Like, maybe not. So this day and night stuff now, light and darkness, is about Earth. Okay, so Pedro, can you please read question 3 in English?
How possibly can stars communicate silence?
Okay, good question. What do you think? Because remember, God just said, "and let them be for signs." So there's lights in heaven that divide the night from the day, and God said, "and let them be for signs."
In the King James Bible here that you gave me, the Henry Morris, it says in the book of Job, there is a commentary on the book of Job that talks about some of the constellations. They form images, and so they tell the story of redemption.
Beautiful.
Did you understand, Camilla?
And here, I'm going to put it in. So astrology, okay, which is the finding of meaning, the search of meaning in the sky. That's a good definition of astrology. Today, astrology is all, okay, it's like New Age. Okay, the age of Jupiter, all sorts of wacky stuff, okay? But what Emily, and I'm delighted Emily has read her King James Study Bible, and because Dr. Henry Morris has beautiful insights, and this is one of them. So the idea is that there's actually was a meaning, original meaning. God wrote messages in the sky for people to read before there were books. Okay, so before books, there was the sky, and you could read, oh, maybe that means, that's the Messiah. Oh, so Okay.
Here in the south, we have the Cruzeiro do Sul, the constellation.
Well, I'm sorry, what is that in English? Is direct translation to English is?
The South Cross.
Yeah, pretty close. It's a Southern Cross.
Southern Cross.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Southern.
that's new for me. I did not grow up with the Southern Cross. That's only in the Southern Hemisphere.
Mhm. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so anyway, so astrology used to have real biblical meaning. But let's take a look. The next line, Emily, the order changed because Pedro jumped. So Emily, can you please read Isaiah 40:26?
Lift up your eyes on high, and behold who hath created these things, that bringeth out their host by number. He calleth them all by names by the greatness of his might. For that he is strong in power, not one faileth.
Wow. Okay, so let me try that. 40:26. Levantai ao alto os vossos olhos e vede quem criou estas coisas. Foi aquele que faz sair o exército delas segundo o seu número. Ele as chama a todos pelos seus nomes, por causa da grandeza das suas forças e por quanto é forte em poder, nenhuma delas faltará. All right, so next question 4 is for Camila. Camila, can you read question 4 in English, please?
What is the significance of Isaiah's verse?
Very good. And in English, it's the emphasis is on the beginning. Isaiah's. Yeah, almost like Isaiah. Very good. Okay, so that's a funny verse. So what's so lift up your eyes on high, and behold who hath created these things, that bringeth out their host by number. He calleth them all by names. Well, why would God give a name to every single star? So the significance of the Isaiah verse is that God gave a name to every star. So if he gave a name to every star, then it's kind of like maybe there is some meaning that we have lost. Okay, maybe our ancestors who had no books, they could look up into the sky and see stories told. Okay, so if God gave a name to every star, maybe he gave stories by putting stars together in the shape of animals, in the shape of a cross, etc. Okay, so we're running a little late. A question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I think also to show that God is all powerful.
Yeah.
That's true.
And he knows every star just as he has counted every hair on my head. I think
Incredible.
I think naming the stars is probably more important than knowing the number of so Camila, can you please read question 5 in English?
What was the main purpose for creating star suns?
Very good. So now the before the word purpose, we're now back to the general rule. M-A-I is then main, open, main. Okay, instead of mom. Okay, so what do you think? What was the main purpose for creating stars and suns? Well, our sun, and that's why I put it in plural, you know, the sun, obviously a lot of our light, our daylight is due to the sun. But then why did God create all these stars and suns?
To give light.
Yeah, that too. Well, let's go back to the last part of the verse, Genesis 1:14. He said, let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Okay, so God created a time clock for mankind.
Mhm.
Okay. So those stars have a purpose. So things are, he's saying it's for us to know the season, know the time of year. The stars all move in the sky. So it's amazing what he did for us. So Pedro, can you please read Genesis 1:15, please?
And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth.
Very good. It's
And it was so.
yeah, beautiful. Upon. Okay, so
Upon.
right, it's if it was up on, if you separate it, it's up on upon.
Upon.
Okay. So when you see a new word, sometimes just divide the word and you kind of understand where it came from. So upon came from up on, and then and often the pronunciation is from the words separate. Okay, so oh, did I read that one? Not? No, I got to go over here. 1:15. E sejam para luminares na expansão dos céus, para iluminar a terra, e assim foi. No one's correcting my Portuguese this evening. Are you all timid, or is it my Portuguese okay?
It's good. It's very good.
Okay. No, please. Okay, it's okay. Thank you. All right. So let's go next question, and we're finishing up. Question 6. That is now Emily. Can you please read question 6 in English?
What purpose does the verse now make explicit?
Okay. So 1:15, it makes something now explicit. That light was to give light upon the earth. Okay, so before it was kind of like, hey, light and, what, okay, but now he's looking at us. He's not looking at, Martians over on Mars. Okay, so he's not concerned about the light of Martians on Mars. He's looking at Earth. Okay, so light and darkness, day and night on Earth. Okay, there we go. And now, Camila, can you please read Genesis 1:16, please, in English?
God made two great lights. The greater lights to rule the day, and the lesser lights to rule the night. He made the star also.
Very good. You corrected your pronunciation of rule because you were saying ruly, but the E is silent. And the second time you said it correct. So rule. Okay, 1:16. E fez Deus os dois grandes luminares, o luminar maior para governar o dia, e o luminar menor para governar a noite. E fez as estrelas. Okay, so we're finishing up. Pedro, question 7 in English, please.
Which are the two great lights?
Okay. So I'm not talking about Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Okay, so here, God made two great lights. What do you think? On Earth, what are the two big lights on Earth, Pedro?
Is on earth are the sun and the moon.
Excellent. Okay. Most people are like, yeah, why is the moon a great light? Hey, at night, a full moon is a lot of light. Okay, very good. So, Emily, can you please read a mouthful, Genesis 1:17 to 19, please?
And God set them in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day.
So I'm going to ask Pedro, do you have your Portuguese Bible there? No? Okay,
No.
then you have to hear. Sorry?
I can take.
Well, bring it next time. I was going to ask you to finish with beautiful Portuguese, but now you're stuck with my Portuguese. E Deus opôs na expansão dos céus para iluminar a terra, e para governar o dia e a noite, e para fazer separação entre a luz e as trevas. E viu Deus que era bom. E foi a tarde e a manhã, o dia quarto.
Entre o dia e a noite.
Okay, a noite. Thank
Noite
you.
feminino.
Thank you. Why is night feminine, by the way?
I don't know. Portuguese.
Because the women like, I'm joking. Because in English, we don't have like, day or night is male or female, only in Portuguese. So, all right. So Emily beautifully pronounced in English. And Camila, can you please finish us up with question 8 in English?
Plant life was created on the third day, and the sun only on the fourth day. Is the day-age theory even possibility?
Even. You said it
Even.
correct. Even. Very good.
Even.
Even possible. Okay, what do you think? If plant life was created on the third day and the sun only on the fourth day, is the day-age theory even possible? What do you think, Pedro? I think there's like a logical problem here. Because remember, do you remember what the day-age theory means? It means, okay, what it means is when the Bible says a day, instead of a 24-hour day, these crazy theistic evolutionists say, no, that wasn't a day, it was an age. Billions of years, long time. So if you believe in the day-age theory, is it possible that the plant life was created on the third day, and then billions of years later arrived light? Don't think so. Okay, so in other words, it's like, let's be kind. It's an internal contradiction. Oops. Here we go. I think I got it. So it's an internal contradiction within that theory. The theory doesn't work.
That's too kind.
Sorry?
That's too kind.
Okay, it is. It's like, all right. So, they come up with these theories and then it doesn't even work. inside their stupid week, which is really billions and billions and billions between every age. So anyway, it's silly. It's silly what people will say. I think you know my favorite. What do you think is my favorite verse in Romans while we're on this subject?
I think it's Romans 1, that part that it talks about evolutionists.
It does. And what does it call them? We said this word earlier. Paul used, it's a tough word. Paul used it in 1 Corinthians. Fools.
Oh, cool.
Okay, fools. Yeesh. All right, and I'll leave you with this. Romans 1:22. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Okay, so professing themselves to be wise. So like, I know everything. Science can explain everything. They became fools. What's the best translation for fools in Portuguese?
Tolos, I think.
What? And what is it?
I think tolos.
Tolos. How about doidos? I like doido. Doesn't doido sound like it? Like fool and doido. It's like,
Yes. Doidos is a bit less polite. I would say.
Okay. I can't tell the difference. Why? Because doido it comes from something else.
I think if you say for example, tá doido, it's a bit offensive.
Okay, it's like you're really, really stupid if you say that.
Yeah.
Okay, not
Like
just a
crazy,
fool.
like
Okay.
crazy.
Okay, I got it. You're right. You're right. It is. Whereas foolish is, we all can be foolish sometimes. Okay, very good. So any questions or comments before we stop the recording?